This video will describe the topographical anatomy of the spinal cord. The spinal cord extends from the foramen magnum to the L1 to L2 vertebrae. It is the continuation of the medulla oblongata of the brainstem rostrally. It gives rise to 31 pairs of spinal nerves. It is described as a segmented structure, though physical segmentation is not visible. If you look at the spinal cord in this picture, here we have the cranial or rostral side of the spinal cord, and we notice that because of the cerebellum, which is just visible up here. So there is no segmentation visible on the actual structure macroscopically. The segmentation is given by the spinal nerves as they cross the vertebral column through intervertebral foramina. The spinal nerves are named according to the vertebra directly above them. For example, the L2 segment forms the L2 spinal nerves, and that leaves below the L2 vertebra. So, as I said before, we do name the spinal nerves according to the vertebra they pass below. So in this case, I drew the vertebral column, or part of the vertebral column, and you can see it from an anterior view. And based on our naming system, we would now see the L2, L3, L4, L5, S1, and S2 nerves. However, this would then give us, based on the vertebral numbers, the following numbers here. We would have cervical, we would have thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal nerves. We would have 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 or 2 coccygeal. As often is the case in biology, we always have exceptions. While the majority of the spinal nerves are indeed numbered based on the vertebra they pass underneath, the cervical vertebrae are named according to the vertebra they pass above. So if we look at this set of vertebrae, C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and we have the nerves here. C1 would cross above C1 vertebra, C2 spinal nerve above C2, and so on. C3, C4, 5, 6, and 7. But now we have vertebra 7, C7, which is empty or ready to allow one spinal nerve to pass underneath. This extra nerve will now become part of the cervical lot, and it will be named C8. So going back to our original counts, we need to correct this to 8 cervical nerves, and that gives us 31 pairs of spinal nerves. We can also notice that the route of the spinal nerves as they leave or enter the spinal cord vary as we go from rostral to caudal along the spinal cord. This is the level of the rostral, or the higher the cervical levels of the spinal cord, and notice that the spinal nerve rootlets, these are the rootlets, are relatively short, and they are almost horizontal as they reach the spinal cord. Moving further caudally, you will notice the change in the direction of the spinal nerve rootlets. They are getting more vertically oriented. As we reach the level of L1 or L2, the spinal cord itself tapers off, forming the conus medullare. Conus However, as we described earlier, we do have spinal nerves which are still leaving the spinal cord and need to reach further down, further caudally, their appropriate level of the intervertebral foramina. These fibers are visible here, and they are more and more vertical, and they are elongated, because from the level of L1, this L1 or L2, they still need to reach the levels of L3, 4, 5, and the sacral levels. These fibers forming a structure which looks like a horse's tail, and thereby it's called coda equina.